What is up, nerds? Matt here, and this is our first look at the new LEGO Icon set, the Retro Radio. We've known about this set for a while now, but we thought it was going to be like a vintage radio set that was like a super oldie-timey radio set. Then we thought it was going to be a gramophone, and now we're back to knowing that it's going to be a retro radio. There are pictures up on LEGO's website, so let's take a look at those and see what we think about this set. Just getting the basics out of the way, this is going to be set number 10334. It has 906 pieces and will retail for $99.99, $100 here in the US. A little bit overpriced maybe, especially for an Icon set. Those tend to be a little bit better value, although this comes with a sound brick. If you care about a sound brick, maybe that's not a terrible price. We can see they're really pushing on that sound brick as being one of the features. It looks like this retro radio is styled from the 1970s, which is, I think, a pretty cool look. I really like the, interior design in the 70s was an abomination, but product design actually had some really cool things going on. So I really like the look of this retro radio. It's got a mint green exterior with some brown accents. Some of them are probably leather, maybe a couple of them are intended to be wood. It's got a really nice area on the bottom half of the radio for the speakers. We can see the grill, and on the left how it looks open there, so you can actually get sound coming through there. I will just say really quickly, I kind of enjoy the little retro radio logo type sort of thing they've created there with that vintage text and the little sound waves above the I and the O. That's pretty cool. We get a nice look at the front of this set. So we've got an on-off knob on the left, and that looks pretty cool. I'm hoping that those are printed. They look like they're probably prints rather than stickers. There are no prints on that knob on the right, which I assume is going to be the volume control over there, if that's a thing that works on this set, I don't know. In the middle, we've got a switch for the AM and FM, so that's pretty cool. And above that, we've got what looks like a really nice looking like frequency dial, so you can really tune in and tune the dial and get to the frequency you want. So there's a video that goes along with this, and we can see that that pointer moves around so you can see where it's pointing at, so as you're selecting the station that you're going to be looking for, whether it's AM or FM. I don't believe that actually does anything, so I don't know that much again about sound bricks, but my assumption is that it plays a fixed audio track and that just basically loops. The look of this thing though looks pretty cool, so the handle looks really nice. If you're intended to be able to carry this thing by that handle, then I'm kind of impressed that that works as well as it does. That's a pretty long unsupported piece of Lego there, so I'm really curious what that handle is made of and how they make it strong enough to carry it around, because I think it would be a disaster if you couldn't use the handle to carry the radio around. We see just a few studs on the ends of the handle and below the AM and FM switch. Otherwise, this thing looks pretty tiled off, which I think is really nice looking. It feels very much like a finished product. It feels a lot like a normal, like a 70s vintage radio, honestly. 85% of the people who walked into your house or office or whatever would probably just assume it was a vintage radio and not a Lego item. So I don't know if that's good or bad. Getting a little 3/4 view here, and that handle does look really nice. I like the way that looks, and actually the antenna looks great. I mean, it's a simple thing to produce. It's a lot of short pieces used in there, so I don't know if they're doing anything to maybe like make that less fragile than it looks like it would normally be. That tiling extends all the way around the top and sides and looks really, really great for that mint green area. It looks like that handle is connected through some Technic pins that allow that handle to rotate back and forth and hopefully be strong enough to support the weight of that radio. The antenna is pointed a little bit more upward here, so that's cool that you can move that around. I'm assuming that you cannot extend it at all, that it has one fixed length and that's the length that it's always going to be, but I think that's fine for a Lego set. Looking at the back, and it's a kind of a scary story. It doesn't look amazing back there. I think that makes sense. This is sort of like the underside of a ship in Star Wars or something. A lot of these sets, the bottom half or the back just doesn't look that great, and I don't think there was a real reason for them to drive the cost up by making the back great here and tiling it off really nicely. Hopefully if someone gets this set, they're not going to be displaying it in a window where you're going to see the back. I would advise against doing that anyway though, because that's a really good way to discolor your bricks. Looking at the back of the box, we can see in the lower right corner that this thing is 9 inches or 23 centimeters wide and 32 centimeters tall or 12.5 inches. This feels a little on the small side to me, but maybe it's not. Let's pull out the ruler here and see. So this is 9 inches, so that's how wide it is, which, I don't know, that's okay. Maybe that's not bad. I feel like it would have been better if it was 10 or 11 inches wide, but 9 inches is probably big enough. 12.5 inches tall though, so that's how wide it is, and then it goes up to there. That's with the antenna, it's in its fully extended position. And I'm really curious to see whether it feels like the right size or whether it feels a little shrunken. So they've left a space so you can put your phone in there and then play a podcast or music or whatever and have it come through the speakers of the radio, the open space on the front. Is that cool? Would I actually do that? I mean, it's funny. If someone walks into the room and you're playing your podcast or whatever, or some music out of the vintage Lego radio, I guess that's kind of cool. Would I ever do that? No. I feel like that's probably something that if you buy the set, you're gonna do like one time and it's gonna be kind of cool, and then you're never gonna do it again. I could be wrong about that though, you know, maybe that's just a me thing. It mostly just makes me think, is it possible for them to have included like an actual functional radio in this set? I have no idea what the cost of that is. Maybe that would be super expensive or unrealistic or difficult to get the parts. Maybe it just doesn't really make sense for a Lego set. But I think it could have been super cool if they did have like if this was a working radio basically, because I have to assume at this point, those parts are not super expensive, maybe. It does look nice on the shelf though, I'll give it that. It's great to see the size of that radio because it looks okay here, so I don't know, maybe I'm gonna be wrong about the size and it'll feel great, but it looks fine in her hands. You know, if you have some really cool vintage objects in your home and you have like an eclectic mix of things going on in your house, this could be a really nice set for someone. We can see that you can turn that knob, so I don't know, that's probably not going to control the volume, maybe, but I don't know, maybe it does. I'm dumb. That knob on the right is not the volume. That's the knob for the frequency. So we can see that that needle does move around in the middle, which is a cool feature to have. You know, it's like a little bit of a play feature, I guess. But I don't think that will do anything to the sound brick. So who is this for? I mean, this is really for anyone who likes Lego and likes vintage things. If you bought the Polaroid camera, then you'll probably like this set too. I'm less excited about the Lego sets that look like a thing and are the size of the thing, and they're sort of like a trompe l'oeil painting of a thing, like a Polaroid camera or a vintage radio. I think that's a cool exercise. It's less interesting to me as like a Lego set that I want to spend my money on, but I like the floral series, so maybe this is not so different from that. So this is going to be maybe for Lego collectors, of people who just like love that idea of taking Lego and making things that look like a thing. But I think this could also be a really great set for someone who doesn't collect Lego and just maybe wants a cool thing to display in their house or on their office and would love to do something that's like a similar experience to building a puzzle, but at the end of that, instead of having a goofy puzzle of some cats or whatever, you have this cool vintage radio that looks cool and that you could display in your office, and it would look nice and it would sort of fit the tone and give you the vibe you're looking for. But let me know your thoughts on this set. I'm really curious to hear if this is something you plan on picking up, whether you bought the Polaroid camera, whether you see these two as similar to one another. All right, take care everyone. Later, nerds.